Welcome to the future. You're living in space. Your home is on a beach umbrella and you are commuting to your job that's located on a beanstalk. No, I'm not high. I'm just describing Space Taxi, a wild game for your Commodore brand 64 or emulator equivalent. Try and figure out which port to plug your joystick into, because we're taking a game break. One of the great things about the home computer revolution of the early 80s was the wacky assortment of imaginative games that came from the interesting minds of young programmers. Space Taxi is just one of many examples. Released in 1984, Space Taxi was created by John F. Kutcher, who worked on the game during his freshman year at Hopkins University. It was his second and final game, following 1983's Rescue Squad, both published by Muse Software. The game drew heavy inspiration from Atari's Lunar Lander, but with physics that are a touch more precise. You play the role of an intergalactic cab driver in the 23rd century, picking up customers that randomly materialize out of thin air, all speaking in a robotic 8-bit voice. Using your multi-thruster yellow cab, you have to land carefully next to your customer and deliver them to the requested pad. It sounds easy, but you live in a universe where weird, deadly things seem to be as common as fluffy clouds. Bouncing balls, shooting stars, bullets, black holes, moving platforms, even magnets are a constant danger. These are uninhabitable places, if you ask me. How do they work or raise a family on a ping pong table? Yeah, it's a video game. I'll try to adjust my expectations of reality accordingly. Whatever. Anyway, you have 5 lives at your disposal, which is good since your cab is basically a flying Pinto. So much as scrape your side view space mirrors on a speck of cosmic dust, and you'll send your tiny taxi screaming to the bottom of the screen. Once you visit all the pads, your passenger will direct you to take off to the next level. Levels are divided into hours, split into 3 shifts of 8 hours each. There are 24 levels to complete, with a bonus 25th level to those who exhibit mastery over the game. Graphically, Space Taxi isn't winning any awards. I wouldn't call them bad, but they could definitely use some tightening.
Great.
The game fares much better in the sound department. The various jingles you hear throughout the game, like when you start a new cab or the segue between levels, were composed by Muse co-founder Silas S. Warner, best known as the creator of the original Castle Wolfenstein in 1981. Space Taxi also makes judicious use of voice samples, provided by John Kutcher himself, and played back at random pitches for variety. Customers will call for the taxi when they're ready to be picked up, and give you instructions as to where they'd like to be delivered. Even in the future, politeness is in style, as they'll give you a hearty thanks when you've successfully gotten them to their destination. Yeah, I get how it sounds. Appreciate the limitations. But bop them in the head with your flying machine, and they'll exclaim before disappearing and taking $10 of your hard-earned money with them. Speaking of money, your score is determined by how quickly you get the commuters to their destinations, starting from when they call for you. Meanwhile, you will occasionally have to refuel in the middle of the level, paid for out of your own pocket. Make enough money in your run, however, and you get to enter your name on the high scoreboard and give you something to brag about to friends and colleagues. Good chance they won't know what you're talking about, but whatever. Space Taxi's controls are intuitive and landing is simple, but the various hazards and environmental quirks, especially in later levels, are sometimes unforgiving. Simply put, the game is hard. That's essentially how a lot of games back in the day were, though. As they were clearly designed with an arcade mentality, it meant stiff challenges that limit playtime and encourage the more determined to keep trying. Personally, the only thing that keeps me from attempting to get better is the gameplay. It requires you to gingerly thrust just enough to get you and your passenger safely from point A to point B. There's really only so long I have the patience for delicate hands. That's basically the reason I was never much of a fan of the game of Operation either. But still, Space Taxi is a very well done game. Simple and fun. On a scale of 1 to 12, I give it a thumbs up. After Space Taxi, John Kutcher moved over to Microprose. While he didn't create any new games, he did offer his assistance in the Commodore 64 port of Solo Flight. Today he develops custom database software for the medical field. Muse Software closed up shop as a software publisher in 1987, with the rights to both Rescue Squad and Space Taxi reverting back to Kutcher. As for Space Taxi, you could find a few remakes floating around the web, including a Kutcher-approved sequel/remake entitled Space Taxi 2. But for the original, you're probably gonna have to go the emulation route, as the game's obviously long out of print. This is Dave from TeeVee Games. See you next time.